How's it going, everyone? Patrick from the Diabetes Management Group here. And I want to say most people do not understand what type 2 diabetes is or what prediabetes is. Majority of people think, oh, it's due to having high blood sugars, and that is the issue. However, the issue is that is the symptom. It is not the root cause of type 2 diabetes. And it frustrates me that people are demonizing carbohydrates, they're demonizing sugars, and making it seem like that it's a horrendous thing. When in actuality, blood sugars are required so that it can move from our gut when we digest our food to our blood, and then our blood is supposed to move it into our muscles, our brain, and the rest of our organs to be used as fuel to allow us to feel good, to move throughout the day, and to stabilize and protect our joints with the muscles. So for those who want a visual demonstration, I'm going to show it to you what the root cause of type 2 diabetes is, how to effectively address it, and the truth that no one is talking about because they either, one, don't understand it or are misinformed about it, or two, are trying to sell an expensive product that isn't effectively addressing the root cause of the type 2 diabetes. Let's get into this. All right. Here is our body. And here is the foods that we eat. We'll call this the red one the protein. We'll call the yellow one the fats. And we'll call the green ones the carbs. So for a basic nutrition thing, for each gram of carb, it equals 4 calories. For each gram of fat, it equals 9 calories. And for each gram of protein, it equals 4 calories. And then I'm not going to talk about this in this video, but for people's purposes, 1 gram of alcohol is equal to 7 calories. So be wary of the alcohol. We'll discuss that in a future video. So what exactly happens with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes? So for type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, the issue is due to insulin resistance. Now, you may be asking, what is insulin resistance? And I hear you. I understand you. So insulin resistance, it is essentially saying that our cells in our body is not receptive to insulin. So that means if for a regular person without type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, one insulin, and this is just for example purposes, is able to take in 4 grams of the carbohydrate molecules for each one to let them through inside. But for insulin resistance, it's basically saying for each insulin, now instead of moving 4 of the carbohydrates, it's only able to move 2 or less of the amount of carbohydrates from the bloodstream and into our actual cells within our body, so that cells can be inside of our brain, inside of our muscles, or other factors. There's a lot of factors that can cause insulin resistance, which that is the root cause of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, where that's the reason why the high blood sugars is a symptom of it, because the insulin is not as sensitive to the cells due to the insulin resistance, so it's not able to move the blood sugars into the appropriate areas that it needs to go. Instead, it stays clogged up in the blood cells, and it prevents the body from feeling full because the blood sugars are not going to the muscles or to the brain, so it's causing it to starve itself. And that's why a lot of people feel hungrier when they have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. I was exposed to this when I had prediabetes back in the day, of constantly feeling hungry, feeling tired, because my body wasn't able to move the blood sugars appropriately into the muscles and into my brain so that I could feel fuller, so that I could feel energized and actually able to function normally. So the causes of insulin resistance, it can be due to a lot of factors. One of the primary factors that it can be caused is due to increased amounts of stress. So that could be caused from lack of sleep. That could be caused from being stressed all the time and not having the appropriate stress management skills, because by having too much stress, our body releases this thing called cortisol and epinephrine. So it's good for short-term cases where, oh crap, I see a bear, I need to run away from that. So those stress hormones will actually stimulate our liver to release more glucose into the bloodstream and getting it into our muscles and our brain so that we can react appropriately in that stressful situation. However, if we are stressed all the time, it taxes our liver, it taxes our pancreas because that's the one that releases the insulin, and it taxes the rest of our body because those stress hormones, it also increases the insulin resistance temporarily. But if it's done for too long a period of times, that's why the insulin resistance is worse. And the issue about it is if there's too much glucose or the sugars that is in a certain area of our body, particularly our muscles, the excess sugars can eventually get converted into fat, and excess fat in our muscles, intramuscular fat or fat built up around our organs, but not actually being utilized in our organs to burn off the calories, that becomes a huge issue because that also increases our insulin resistance. Because if we think about it this way, fat doesn't necessarily use the carbohydrates as much compared to muscles and our brain, and instead it can increase the insulin resistance. So it makes our body not as sensitive towards utilizing those blood sugars effectively. Instead, it's just built up as the storage of energy, which that's what our fat cells are supposed to be used as, or used for hormone regulation. But if we have too much of it inside our muscles and inside of our organs, that could prolong the effects of it and making it worse. Recommendations for improving stress management, they would be installing blackout curtains so that one can actually sleep more effectively, and doing some sleep meditation videos. That's the stuff that I've used. And whenever one is eating foods, try to have one's last meal 2.5 hours before going to bed, and as well as the last drink, because every time we wake up, it's required for our body to release these stress hormones because that's what's causing us to wake up and actually wake up on time and appropriately. That is what is causing the higher blood sugars in the morning. And we'll talk about the high blood sugars in the morning, how to manage that in a future video. And with that increased responsive stress, that's what's causing our body to overwork itself, having more of the insulin resistance if it's prolonged and not a good time. Again, it's not due to the once in a while situation. Instead, it's more of a if we are constantly stressed 24/7 or a significantly good amount of the time without being able to get back into the rest digest phase where we're calming down the rest of our body so it's more insulin sensitive, that's when it becomes an issue. So the blackout curtains to improve sleep, also saving the energy bill, which is nice, practicing meditation videos, and then delaying when we eat our food or increasing the window of time between when we have our dinner before going to bed. That's going to allow our body to properly digest the food appropriately instead of trying to do that and overworking itself while we're sleeping. So that is one of the ways to decrease insulin resistance and address one of the root causes of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. Another thing, it's actually understanding our calorie maintenance. I'm misspelling this, but we understand the point. If we are eating too many calories compared to how much we're burning throughout the day, that can actually increase the amount of adipose tissue or fat cells around our body. Again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's more of a, if it happens for too long a period of time, that is going to be an issue because sometimes we need an excess amount of calories in order for us to build muscles. However, if we're building too much fat cells compared to the muscles or the other structures and functions within our body, that can lead to more insulin resistance. And as I mentioned before with the stress hormones in the past, where if there's too much built up of the blood sugars and it's not able to move appropriately into the muscles and the rest of the body, that could actually convert into fat inside of the muscles, inside of our organs. That's going to be a problem and an issue. And having an excess amount of calories, that can also prolong the issue of the insulin resistance. So by being able to address the calorie maintenance to figure out where's our basic metabolic rate and consistently eating that amount of calories, that's going to be a good thing. One of the sneaky things that does happen that people undercount their calories is due to the sauces that are out there, the drinks that are out there, and the variety of things that can impact how much calories we're taking in versus how much calories we actually need to maintain our current weight and our current functions of our cells and our bodies. So with the caloric situation, as I said before, alcoholic beverages, that's about 1 gram of alcohol equals 7 calories. And then for each gram of the carbohydrates, 1 gram of that is 4 calories. And then as I said, for the fat, 1 gram of fat equals the 9 calories. due to how our current system and environment is, it can overinflate how many calories we have for the food or meals or the drinks that we have. So for example, deep frying, all those grams of the oil that gets intermixed into the food, that increases the amount of calories. And if one isn't expending it appropriately, that's going to be an issue. And the other issue about it is carbohydrates. It's not really satiating. So I could eat like a plate full of rice and pasta, and then an hour later, I could feel hungry again due to how quickly the food can be absorbed and making me feel a lot more hungrier. The same thing goes for foods whenever they're processed. It makes the digestion process go a lot faster because we're reducing the amount of time that we actually have to chew the food and actually it getting sent to the rest of our body. So it can be absorbed a lot more quickly. And of course, if it's absorbed too quickly, our body gets in more of a starvation state because it prefers more of a straight, succinct, easier level of intaking the food and digesting the food. That if it happens too quickly, then you have a rapid spike and then it could be a rapid drop. So that's why people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, they tend to struggle because their blood sugar can go really high, but all of a sudden their blood sugar comes crashing down below because there's a mismatch of how quickly the body is able to absorb it or how balanced the body is actually able to absorb the nutrients of foods. So with that being said, if I were to eat this gram of the carbohydrates, goes to my stomach, and then it's supposed to go to the stomach onto the blood vessels, and then it's supposed to go to the blood vessel to our muscles. So that's a fist, bicep, triceps, shoulder. So that's supposed to be an arm to represent our muscles. For our brain, so the blood sugars, it's supposed to move from the food itself into our intestines and our gut, to move it into our blood, and then to move it to our organs and then our muscles so that it can be used off as fuel. So with insulin resistance, it breaks up the process where now the pathway from the blood getting into the muscles and the brain, this part is blocked. And it's not due to the food that's coming in because we still need the food to come in order to supply our muscle and our organs and brain. It's due to insulin resistance affecting the pathway of this stream over here that is being blocked. A lot of people are blaming this step over here, which is a complete false thing because rises in blood sugars after eating food is completely normal because it's supposed to transfer those blood sugars into the rest of our bodies. It's just a matter of, oh crap, this portion over here is being blocked and it's not having a good time. And ways to address it, as I talked about before, if we're able to reduce the amount of stress, that can significantly improve our ability to regulate and manage the blood sugars and decreasing the insulin resistance. And then by understanding what our caloric balance is, I'll put in the description below of a calculator to help someone understand what their caloric maintenance is. By identifying and understanding, that can help improvements in understanding, oh, do I need to lose more fat percentage so that I can become more insulin sensitive? Or do I need to have my maintenance calories so they're not overeating and increasing the amount of fat cells inside of my muscles and inside of the organs around there so I can improve my blood sugar control and maneuvering through there. So those are the most common methods to address for addressing the root cause of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. And another way to do that as well, there's this thing called fiber. And fiber, an easy way to put this is imagine that our sink gets plugged and the water represents the blood sugars and then the clogged thing that is insulin resistance. So fiber acts as like a plumber or like a goop thing that helps clean the drain and actually clears out the blockage over here so that we're able to erase that blockage and improve the transfer from the blood sugars into the muscles, into the organs, and the rest of the body. And it also helps us feel fuller for longer. So fiber, it acts as a way to slow down the digestion process so that it can improve the ability for the blood sugars to move into the muscles, to move into the rest of the organs, so it could be used off as fuel appropriately, and improving one's ability to feel fuller for longer, improving our ability to have clear functions, and the rest of the opportunities for that. Now, again, I'm sure people, whenever they hire a plumber or some other things that goes through there, they still need to add a bit of water to still help the drain move down. So it's important that whenever one is eating fiber, make sure to hydrate. Get your H2O, also known as water, to include with your fiber so that it can prevent any gasiness from being built up when it's being fermented in our gut to try and clean our gut. The water helps to dissolve that. And in the case for the plumbing example, adding a bit of water to help drain everything up and flush everything out, that's supposed to help out with that process. Because I've been in situations where you would eat a lot of fiber and not a whole lot of water, and all of a sudden I have farts that would smell awful and its frequency would be horrendous. That just meant that I didn't drink enough water with the fiber. And common foods to find fiber, it could be split peas, raspberries, and legumes or lentils. Those are good sources of fiber to help improve one's ability to manage their blood sugar control. One of the articles that I've read for a research study, it said that having 45 grams to 55 grams of fiber per day, that's been really beneficial in helping people improve their insulin sensitivity, lowering their A1Cs, effectively reversing their type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, also improving a healthy weight loss by decreasing the amount of fat mass that they have in accordance to it. And fiber just does a great job in helping us feel fuller for longer so that we can maintain our caloric balances instead of thinking that we need to overeat because we're always hungry all the time. That can actually help with us feeling fuller for longer without as much of the calories coming in and effectively maintaining the balance of all the things. And additionally, other things that can be helpful too, it would be protein. So protein over here, that can also have the effects of slowing down the digestion process. And the cool thing about proteins is we need the proteins to build our muscle so that it can become stronger. Because the more muscles that we have, or the stronger our muscles are, that actually increases this demand's need for blood sugars and can improve our insulin sensitivity by having more of that protein to improve our strength. And in order to maintain the strength, it would need more blood sugars and thus effectively improving our control of those blood sugars appropriately. A quick thing that I like to do based off the research that's out there, presuming someone doesn't have any kidney dysfunctions, then having about 1 gram of protein for each pound that they weigh, that is very beneficial in allowing their body to maintain its appropriate function, improving A1C scores, and effectively reducing the insulin resistance, improving the insulin sensitivity, and lowering the A1C scores to effectively reverse type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, because it can be reversed due to having these lifestyle factors. And of course, going on walks after meals, that effectively improves the muscle's ability to move the blood sugars into the muscles and helping clear out the processes that's going on through there. Instead of waiting for a bit longer, a comparison that I like to use for someone who likes to eat the food but not do anything and then exercise later, it's very similar to a fire that's in the house. If there's a small fire that's going on in the house and they decide to, oh, let's wait to put it out, and it starts to get bigger and bigger, that becomes more of an issue compared to, oh, there's just a small thing, it's like a small flame in the house that I could take out right now. Like going on that walk afterwards, that's utilizing the blood sugars that are coming in and effectively controlling those blood sugars appropriately by making those muscles more active and utilizing it effectively and appropriately. So those are the basic examples that one can utilize to improve their healthy habits and improving their type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. And I will say it is completely possible for people to have the sugary treats that they want. They can have the processed foods. They can have whatever artificial sweeteners or other things that are out there for them, because in the end of the day, as long as we can find what nutritional advice or what lifestyle advice or any other advice that works best for us, that we can sustain for longer periods of time, that is completely better compared to trying to go on a fad diet that is not going to work, lead to burnout, could potentially increase the risk of an eating disorder, not having a good time. That's the thing that I want people to avoid, because I've been down that journey of having a disordered eating habits, having prediabetes, all the symptoms of type 2 diabetes that's horrendous, such as going to the bathroom in the middle of the night like 9 times. It's awful. I don't recommend it to anybody. Feeling tired and fatigued, like chronically and all the time, and then feeling weak and also feeling groggy. I don't recommend that to anybody. And I was able to use this implement and framework to reverse my prediabetes, and I've kept it reversed for 2 years now. And I've also helped multiple clients also reverse their diabetes, and they're in the process of maintaining these awesome habits. They're losing a lot of the fat mass, they're increasing their strength and their muscle mass, and they're having a phenomenal time and inspiring other people to do that too. So much so that they keep on telling people to subscribe to the channel or to check out my other free content to work with me so that they can improve their health and their ultimate fitness. And that's the stuff that I love to hear, people's success stories of implementing these strategies without having to rely on supplements or other things that isn't going to treat the root cause. And instead, by actually treating the root cause by reducing stress or managing stress effectively, and then understanding the calories, eating more fiber, eating more protein, that can consistently help with everything. And then for those who do love the sweets and the foods, I highly recommend pairing the proteins and the fibers for every single one of those meals or anytime they were to drink something. So if someone wants to indulge in an alcoholic beverage when they're socializing with friends, I highly recommend eating a meal that is high in protein and fiber beforehand so that they could feel satiated, and it can also blunt the effects of how alcohol and whatever sweeteners they could put in that alcohol, how it would affect their blood sugar levels and their metabolism. So another thing that I want to mention too, it's thank you all so much for tuning into this video. I appreciate all the support that you have. If you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you can leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share it with someone that you think would be beneficial for, and comment your thoughts below if you agree, disagree, or have any questions. I'm happy to facilitate awesome conversations. And thank you all so much again, and we'll see you in the next video.